It's the game that won Han Solo the Millennium Falcon. But have you ever actually played it?
Tonight, we're celebrating our very first episode by playing Sabacc and learning to make a Star Wars-themed cocktail called the Photon Fizzle.
Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I'm Bridget.
This is the podcast where everyone is welcome, even your droids. This
is Board Game Cantina.
We did it! We made it to the table for our very first episode. I feel like this calls for a celebration.
Where should we look for our very first drink inspiration?
So we're going to learn how to make a drink called the Photon Fizzle in this episode. And some of the drinks that we're going to learn how to make on Board Game Cantina will be recreations of drinks from Star Wars lore, from the books, the movies, the streaming shows, and so forth. Some of them are going to be our own homemade versions of the drinks that they serve at Galaxy's Edge in the Disney theme parks. But did you know there's an official Galaxy's Edge cookbook?
There is. This book is amazing. We love it. It has a ton of recipes, not just for all the great food they serve at the parks, but also a whole lineup of other cocktails beyond what you'll experience at Galaxy's Edge. And it has big, beautiful photos of everything.
If you haven't been to Galaxy's Edge, we should probably set up some quick context because it's going to come up a lot in this show.
We're kind of obsessed with it.
Yeah, we're kind of obsessed.
We love it there.
So Galaxy's Edge, it's an area of the Disney parks in both Anaheim and Orlando. And when you're in it, it's designed to give you this completely immersive experience as though you're actually on a planet. Mm-hmm. You've landed on a planet in the Star Wars galaxy called Batuu, which is located out in the Outer Rim.
You mean like on the edge of the galaxy?
Yes, exactly like that, Bridget. When you're in Batuu, there's a little town called Black Spire Outpost. Hardcore fans will call it BSO. So if you hear anybody say that, you're in the know. Black Spire Outpost is full of different shops and dining spots and characters from the worlds of Star Wars. And they're kind of interacting in what feels like sort of a live storytelling environment. Visiting there has become a real source of joy for us and for a lot of our friends.
So this cookbook is written in universe from the perspective of a character named Strano. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that first name, but Strono Tugs.
Apologies to the Tugs family if we're pronouncing that wrong.
Who sources food items from around the galaxy for those eating establishments on Batuu.
So what's on the menu for tonight?
We're starting with a drink called the Photon Fizzle, and we're going to mix it up right now. So if you want to make one along with us and enjoy that while you're playing Sabacc, we'd love to see your picks on how it turns out.
We're starting off with a challenging one, mainly to prove to ourselves that we can do it. The Photon Fizzle actually has 2 ingredients that are going to require a little extra prep time. It's boba pearls, which we're going to make from scratch. I've never done it. Have you ever done it before?
No, it's my first time.
It's a lot. Mm-hmm. There's a lot to it. So we're making boba pearls, and we're going to make an ingredient that the cookbook calls Dagobah slug juice. And we're also going to go ahead and share some shortcuts to help you skip those steps. So if you're a little tight on time, don't worry. We got you.
So why don't you join us in the kitchen? We'll get started. First up, we need to make some boba pearls that are meant to look like delicious Dagobah frog eggs swimming around in your drink. Here's what you're going to need. A medium-sized saucepan, a small pot, some brown sugar, something to chop with, tapioca flour, sometimes called tapioca starch, a strainer or a straining spoon, your measuring cups, just get them all out, and some green gel food coloring like you use in your holiday baking. We had to play with our proportions a bit, but mix up about 1/3 cup of water and 1/4 cup of brown sugar in your saucepan over medium heat. When you get that to a gentle boil, go ahead and take it off the heat. Then you're going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of that green food coloring and mix it in nice and thoroughly. Then it's time to add in a 1/2 cup of tapioca flour, which will gradually turn into a slimy green ooze. Once it's holding together in kind of a ball and looks pretty consistent, you're going to add another 1/2 cup of the tapioca flour. If you've never made boba pearls from scratch before, I'm not going to lie to you. It takes some work. There's a fine line between way too much water and not enough.
Yeah.
Mix it up as best you can, but then transfer it to a clean working surface and knead it and fold it together almost like you're making a pastry. Once that flour has disappeared, start rolling it out into thin cylinders. You're going to be chopping these into the pieces that will become your boba pearls. So pick a diameter that will be comfortable in the drink. For example, ours came out a little too big to make it up the straws we like to use, so I would have cut these smaller. Yay, the hard part's over. Now boil some water in your pot and drop them in. They'll be ready in about 15 to 20 minutes and will come out with a little bit of gelatinous sheen on them. That's how you'll know they're ready.
Okay, folks, weird task number 2. We're going to make Dagobah slug syrup. And this ingredient actually gets used in another cocktail from the Galaxy's Edge cookbook, which we'll cover in another episode. So let's gear up one more time. If you have a little kitchen scale, go ahead and grab that. And then if you zero that out with a small bowl on it, that's going to help you weigh the ginger that you'll be using. You'll also need some sugar, a small pot again, a pitcher or other large measuring cup. You're going to need a few cloves of ginger. We're aiming for about 4 ounces after it's been peeled, 1 sprig of rosemary, and lastly, you're going to need a spoon or a peeler for the ginger. Okay, you'll need to start by peeling the ginger. It's an irregular shape, so it helps to kind of break the branches off. We find using a spoon as a scraper makes pretty quick work of the peeling, and by we, I mean Bridget. Then cut the ginger up into roughly 1/4-inch pieces. This doesn't have to be exact. You're just kind of exposing surface area for when you're steeping it later. I don't know how we managed to get exactly 4 ounces. So Dagobah slug syrup is basically a modified simple syrup solution. If you're used to making cocktails, you know what that is. You're gonna combine a cup of sugar and a cup of water in your pot and bring it to a boil. Toss in 1 sprig of the rosemary and all of that ginger you chopped up. That's probably going to cause the water to stop boiling, so go ahead and bring it back to a boil and then remove it from the heat. We soaked it for about 45 minutes and that was plenty. When you're done steeping, strain your slug juice into a jar. Ideally, you want to label it so nobody dips into the slug juice when you're not looking.
Do we get to mix the drink yet?
Yes, it's been a long journey, but we're finally ready. So here's what you're going to need for the final part where we actually make the Photon Fizzle for real this time.
Yay.
You're going to need your Dagobah slug juice, which you've lovingly crafted, your boba pearls, which you either lovingly crafted or went to the store and bought. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. You're going to need a couple glasses, a cocktail shaker, your favorite gin, a jigger or shot glass or something that's small enough for you to measure down to about the 1/2 ounce. And then you're going to need about a bottle of ginger beer. All right, first, transfer some of those boba pearls into your glasses. How many? It kind of depends on the visual you're trying to create. Depends on how much you like boba. What does your heart tell you? Go ahead and throw some ice in your shaker. Pour in about a 1/2 ounce of your slug juice. A little bit of this stuff goes a long way, trust me. Add about 3 ounces of gin. Then about 4 ounces of the ginger beer. Keep going. Good. There you go. Okay, perfect. All right, now squeeze in about a 1/2 of a lime. Shake all that for about 20 to 30 seconds. Strain it into your glass. And then just repeat that mixing process if you're making a second one of these. Photon Fizzle. Okay, we're back from the kitchen. That was a lot of work.
It was.
But I think we ought to cheers each other.
Okay.
Because I'm super proud of us. Cheers.
Cheers.
Photon Fizzle in real life.
Good. Refreshing.
Yeah, it's nice and fizzy. There's ginger beer, so that's kind of a nice light element. We'll talk a little bit more about this drink and kind of our reactions to it a little later in the episode. But we need to talk a little bit about the history of the Photon Fizzle. I feel like this is important.
Yes.
I feel like people need to know this stuff.
History is good.
Yeah. You know, we have to understand our history and our roots. Mm-hmm. So where I usually like to go when I'm delving into Star Wars history is Wikipedia.
Yes.
And the earliest mention of the Photon Fizzle is in the 80s. I mistakenly thought that they created the Photon Fizzle as an Oga's Cantina cocktail to serve to us at Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
But no, it already existed. There was a cartoon that I used to watch when I was little called Star Wars Droids, circa 1985. And that apparently, according to Wikipedia, is the earliest mention of the Photon Fizzle. Like most things on this show, if you've got differing information and you want to post that in the comments,
Please let us know.
I'm super interested.
Yeah.
I would love to know.
Sharing is caring.
Yep. Later, there's a sort of unspoken reference to it in episode 2, Attack of the Clones, that I did not know about until today. We were prepping this episode, and in the background, in Dex's diner, when Obi-Wan goes to visit his friend Dex, there is a tank of pre-mixed pearls and Photon Fizzle juice just sitting there. So that's something that they serve at that diner, and it would be nice if we could just
dispense it from a giant vat.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Feels appropriate. Mm-hmm. Just as recently as the last week or two here, there was an episode of The Mandalorian called The Convert, third episode of this third season that we're in right now. And they made a comment. They were walking around like downtown Coruscant, and they made a reference to nearby you could just swing by and grab a Photon Fizzle. Yeah. So this is kind of a recurring thing that's been happening in the Star Wars universe. It also gets a mention in the most recent Lego Star Wars game. They've redone Lego Star Wars a few times over the years. The most recent one is, I believe it's called the Skywalker Saga. It was on hold for the whole pandemic. Just hit our mailboxes about a year ago this past Christmas. And there is literally a moment where you're in Dex's diner and you get tasked with serving an adorable little Lego version of a Photon Fizzle to a customer. So
nice.
This is a pretty established beverage in the Star Wars lore.
Popular beverage.
Yeah. Okay, so we're set up with our drinks now. It feels like we're ready to dive into our first ever game on Board Game Cantina.
And oddly enough, it's not a board game. It's a card game.
Yep. But, you know, we're open-minded about such things.
We are. I have a really good feeling about this.
So Sabacc is important enough in the Star Wars galaxy that it feels like a natural place to start. It's pretty pivotal in a lot of ways. So we're going to kick off with some of the quick facts about the game. We're going to talk a little bit about how it's played, and we are calling this segment the mission briefing. Similar to how I'll go to imdb.com when I'm interested in looking up the fun facts and the cast and information about a movie or a TV show, I use boardgamegeek.com when I'm exploring a new game or I'm wanting to do a little bit of research, figure out if it's something I want to play, because I can get all the information about when it came out, how highly is it rated by the community, see pictures of it, watch videos of people playing it. It's awesome. And it'll usually tell me who the publisher and the designer is. Sabacc is kind of different situation. The designer is not credited as being any one person because the rules of Sabacc have kind of been tossed out there by authors in the novels and the comics and the shows over the years. And the idea of it being a playable game that you could actually go to the store and buy as a product and come home and experience is sort of new. They kind of had to do it for around the time of the Solo movie. It's been published by Hasbro, and it's also been published directly by Disney. And we're a little fuzzy on the line between the two, but we're also going to talk about the difference between some of the versions in just a minute here. The release date is roughly 2019, we think. And in terms of where would you go to buy this, you can buy it at Galaxy's Edge. You can also buy it on Amazon. The Board Game Geek community ratings are kind of middling, kind of mediocre. And that's interesting to me because I actually find it really fun to play.
Yeah.
I think it's super immersive. When you think about it, it's one of the few games you can play where you're in a first-person perspective. You're holding the cards just like a character in a movie would, as opposed to moving characters around that represent you on a board. Mm-hmm. It gives you that feeling of immersion that I think a lot of us are after when we're visiting the parks, dressing up, you know, deep diving with our friends on it. So the Board Game Geek average rating is 5.74 out of 10 stars, which is, you know, kind of right in the middle of the road. To me, that feels low for how fun it is for me, but that may just be affected by how much people love Star Wars or want to have that feeling of connection to it. Mm-hmm. 10 is kind of a theoretical rating on Board Game Geek. I don't know if it's ever happened. You know, anything that's up in the 7 or 8s, you know it's a hit. 5 to 6, it's going to kind of depend on you. Your mileage may vary. So earlier, we played a few hands of Sabacc together, and Bridget totally schooled me.
All luck, really. As you'll see.
But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We actually love playing this game when we have friends come over, especially if they like Star Wars. It's a fun way to just feel like you're engaging with the universe. Mm-hmm. So let's take a look at how that went. Hey, Bridget.
Hey, John.
Should we play Sabacc?
Yes.
Okay. Excited. One of our go-tos when people come over for company. Mm-hmm. So before I shuffle, Should we ante in?
Yes.
What are we anteing for this game?
2 credits into the game pot.
Okay.
And 1 credit into the Sabacc pot.
Unlike a lot of games, Sabacc has 2 pots. The Sabacc pot can carry over from one hand to another if nobody has a hand that adds up to 0, which sometimes is the case. You never know if anybody's even going to get Sabacc.
So you're just shuffling the cards now.
Yep. Quick shuffle. And then we're each going to get, I'll go ahead and move the box.
Yeah, move this over. It's our little game book.
We use a player aid not only to refresh on the rules if it's been a while since we played, but also there are a lot of hands in Sabacc, way more than poker. It's a little bit stunning how many there are.
Yeah.
And it comes down to a potentially complex tie-breaking decision that without a reference, it could be annoying.
Which we had to do recently.
We did.
Yeah.
Some of these
in
are
Galaxy's
weird.
Edge.
Yeah, we did. Some of these are weird edge cases that you never actually run across in real life. So after the ante, we're each going to get an initial deal of 2 cards. And I'm going to flip the top card of the draw pile and create a discard pile.
Okay.
So we'll play open-handed. So we'll, for teaching purposes, we'll just lay our cards out, but we'd be keeping these secret, just like in a poker hand. Most of the cards, all you have to do is count the pips on the card. So, and the green is positive, red is negative. So I've got a positive 5 and a negative 6. So I've got a total of -1 in my hand right now.
And I have a very bad hand. I have a -6 and a -9.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not very good.
Yeah, there's 4 cards that are kind of like face cards where you just sort of have to memorize what they're worth. This one that looks a little bit like a queen is worth 9. And that's a -9. So you'll be looking to balance that somehow.
Yeah. And that +3 is not going to do it.
Right. So based on our getting a look at our initial cards, we would do a round of betting, starting with you since I dealt.
Okay. I will bet 1 credit.
Okay. And then I'll match that to stay in the game. And then we go into a draw phase where we have a couple different options.
Yeah. So my first option would be to pay 2 credits and take this +3. My second option would be to trade a card for this +3, which I was thinking about doing. My third option is to pay a credit and take the top card in the
draw pile.
Draw pile.
Just do a blind draw.
And my fourth option would be to trade a card for one of the draw. So I'm going to try my luck and trade a card for the draw and see what I get.
Okay. You also have the option of just standing. So, for example, if you were to be dealt a
Right.
Sabacc hand that
That's
already
true.
adds up to 0 right off the bat, you're not obligated to take any more
I
cards.
could just stand. Yeah. But I wouldn't do that with this hand unless I was very good at bluffing, which I am not.
Yeah. And even if you do have a Sabacc hand, the trick is to not be so confident that you freak everyone else out and they fold.
Yeah.
And then you never get a chance to bet the pot up a little
If I
bit.
wanted to bluff, I didn't start out very well betting 1 credit. So I'll discard my highest card.
Okay.
And take this one. And this is a -7, so that was didn't help me very much.
A little bit.
Now, where do I put the discard?
On the top of the discard pile.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which, for all you know, is just what I need. If I had a big positive hand, I might really need that. So you never exactly know what you're giving your opponent when you do that discard.
But I didn't help you with that. So.
But that's why you would have the option of paying instead of discarding.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's safer.
Yeah. So now it's your turn.
Okay. So at -1, I'm inclined to just stick with this hand. I'm a little worried about, I don't know how bad your hand is, but I wouldn't want to trigger you to give up too early. So I'm wrestling with whether to draw blind.
It's a risk.
It is a risk. I think if I was really playing, I would just stick with this hand and hope you
I would too.
Don't bail.
But for the sake of this,
keep it interesting.
Yeah.
I will pay 1 to draw blind off the draw pile. Okay.
Oh.
And that
Wow.
paid off. So now I'm at a Sabacc hand where it adds up to 0 because I've got a positive 6 balanced out by a negative 6. And I try not to like make a face or be super obvious, which is also not my strong suit either in this game. But now we've both bet and we've both done our draw phase. So then we do the last part of the round, which is rolling the dice.
It's a little nerve-wracking for you because we have, 3 more rolls of this dice, and it could wipe out that really great hand you have depending on how you roll this.
Yeah,
so,
that's where Carillion Spike stays interesting as a game. Even if you're way behind and you've got a whole table full of players, these evil dice can completely change the whole outcome. So the dealer rolls, and there's symbols on each side of the dice that are all different. All that matters is that they not match. You absolutely do not want them to match. Okay, those don't match, so there's no effect. If they did match, everyone around the table has to dump their hand and then be redealt new cards, however many cards they had at the moment.
Right.
And I think we've been house ruling something that is not entirely clear in the rules as written, which is where do those cards go if you get the spike and everyone has to dump? Because we realized if there's no order to how people put them into this discard pile that you could potentially draw from, it could really change the outcome. So I think we decided as a house rule, we're going to have those cards that are dumped in the event of a spike just go off to the side and just use this for when we're paying our discards.
Yeah.
I still like that rule.
Okay.
So that's the end of that round. Now we're moving on to round 2, where now that we've got 3 cards, well, I've got 3 cards.
I have 2.
Based on the events of the first round, how confident are we feeling in our hand?
Right.
And we do another round of betting starting with you.
So at this point, if we were playing for real, I would probably want to fold. I don't like my odds at all with these cards, but I'm going to stay in the game, and I'll bet 1 credit to stay in the game.
Never tell you the odds?
Yeah, never tell me the odds.
Okay. So, and then if I want to stay in the game, I got to match that. And I don't know what you have. And all I see when you're hiding your cards is that you've got 2 cards and you're staying in the game. So I'm like, that's interesting. Does she have Sabacc? Now I'm worried. So I may not be betting up too high, but that may buy you enough time to do something with your hand.
Yeah.
So now we've both bet to stay in, and now we go into our draw phase, starting with you.
Okay. I will pay a credit to draw a card sight unseen. And, well, I wind up with a positive card, which is better than what I had before. It's a positive 5. So now I have
negative 13. Let's see, it's negative 7, and negative 1 is negative 8. Which is interesting, because if you would have exchanged that 7 for the top card, then right now you'd be at negative 1.
Yeah, that's probably what I should have done. I should have exchanged. But, it's a game of chance. I'm going to take a chance.
Yep.
So now it is your turn.
Okay. And I'm at Sabacc, so it would be ridiculous of me to try to do anything to improve on that. So I'm going to stand and hope that doesn't make you fold.
Yeah. See, that would worry me that you're standing.
Yeah.
I don't know. What should I do? Okay.
So that's it for me in the draw phase.
Yeah.
So now we roll the dice again. That's no match. So there's no spike. And then we move on to the next round, where we're going to
stay in.
We're going to bet to stay in.
Again, I would probably fold at this point, but I want to play this out.
Yep.
For the sake of the audience.
Yeah.
I will sacrifice a credit.
Okay. And then I'll match that to stay in.
Okay.
So the game pot's up to 3, 5, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12 credits. And then the Sabacc pot over here is 2 more. At this point, you would do your draw phase.
Yeah. So at this point, I'm thinking either I trade a card for the draw pile or I pay and hope it's a positive card.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to trade just because I paid last time.
Okay.
So I'm going to get rid of that -7. And I end up drawing a +4. So now I have a +9 and a -6. So I have a +3.
Mm-hmm. So game's closer now.
Yeah. Still not as good as your hand, but
I'm going to stand again.
mm-hmm.
So at this point, I did that twice in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not obvious to you by this point that I've got Sabacc in my hand,
or something,
or I'm just
good.
really bad at this,
Yeah.
then, we'll just keep practicing.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's it for the draw phase. And then we roll again. And then is this our third die roll?
Yeah.
So this is the end of the game, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So once you roll okay.
So now what happened was we got matching symbols on the die.
Yep. That is the spike.
That is the spike.
In Carillion spike.
Mm-hmm.
We got one on our first hand.
Yeah. If I had folded that last round, you would have won everything.
Yeah.
Including the Sabacc pot. So
pays to stay in. That happens with some regularity in this game.
Yeah.
Those dice really get involved.
Yeah. So we do not get these cards any longer.
Right.
We're going to put them off to the side.
All you have to do is remember how many you had. So you had 3.
I had 3.
And I had 3. When you've got a whole table full of guests, they could all have a different number of cards. So before people get excited and start dumping, you really want to make sure everyone understands that their job is to remember how many they had.
Yeah.
If it's a big party, it could be complicated.
Now
so
I'm hoping I get a better hand.
We're each going to get 3. And then because that was the final die roll at the end of the third round, there's no more drawing or manipulating these cards.
When we turn these over, this is what we get, and whoever has the better hand wins.
Yeah. This is like a good old-fashioned poker game where you get what you get and you hope it's good.
Oh, look at that. So I have a -8, a +8, which those two cancel each other out, and a +6. So I end up with a +6.
Yep. And I have a +10 and a +6. So I've got 16 minus 9 is +7. So that's about as close of a game
That's pretty close
as you can get without having one of the Sabacc tiebreaker scenarios. So with that one roll of the dice, Bridget won the game and takes the game pot, but not the Sabacc pot.
Right, because I did not have a Sabacc. So I went from a very poor losing hand up against a Sabacc hand.
And still won.
And I still won because of the roll of the dice, because I stayed in.
Yeah, always find a way to stay in this game.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, you can wind up winning the Millennium Falcon. Like I understand. So, do we want to play a second hand?
Yeah, I'm just going to take my credits first.
Because now you're feeling all confident.
I am.
Let me just take these and
Okay.
shuffle them. Oops, sorry. So we let the Sabacc pot ride, and then for our next round, you'll be the dealer.
Okay.
So I'll let you shuffle, and I'll put in my Sabacc ante.
These cards are a little, because of their shape, they're sort of awkward to shuffle.
Yeah, Sabacc cards are a funny shape.
Normally, I'm very good at shuffling cards, and I might actually pass these to you. I'm so bad at it. I hope people trust me when I say I do know how to shuffle.
Yeah, shuffling Sabacc cards is like its
Earth-shaped cards. So would you mind
No,
shuffling
no
those a
problem.
little better? Thank you.
So So don't forget to ante in to the Sabacc pot.
Oh, thank
and then
you.
we'll both ante into the game pot.
There's my 1 credit for the Sabacc pot. And 2.
2 to the game pot.
2 to the game pot.
And you can set the ante however you like, just like with any other card game.
The credits go fast, though.
They do. We've been trying to find the optimal number of chips to give our guests when they come over so they don't run out, but also so it's not ridiculous that you've got way too many.
Yeah.
But there you go.
Okay.
Here's your spike dice.
Thank you. So 1, 1, 2, 2. And we have positive 5
In the discard.
in the discard. So I dealt myself a positive 9 and a positive 4.
Yep. I've got a positive 6 and a positive 4.
And we have a positive 5.
Yep.
Okay.
Feeling pretty positive about this game.
Not really.
So based on our confidence level in our opening hand, we would do our initial bet.
Okay.
I feel terrible about my opening hand, so I'm going to do the minimum.
Okay. I will do the minimum as well.
And then we go into our draw phase. I really need a negative something to balance any of this. And I'm inclined to want to get rid of my biggest positive.
Why so? There could be a negative face card in there.
Yeah, it could be anything.
You can.
I'll try trading. So again, just to recap, my options are I can pay a chip to take the top card that I haven't seen yet. I can pay 2 chips to take the top of the discard pile, which I can see. So it's a little more expensive since I know what I'm getting. Or in either case, I can just trade one of my cards out of my hand. So I'm going to trade the smaller card in case what I'm getting from here is a big one. I would want to, I think to your point, I'd want to minimize the damage from that. So that'll go to the discard pile. I'll take this and I wind up with a negative 8.
That was good. Better.
So that's an improvement. So now I'm at negative 2 total. And then it's to you.
Okay. I think I'm going to do the same. I'm going to trade. And I think I'll trade this face card. Oh. Well, I ended up getting a positive 8. A little better, but still not ideal.
Okay. And then so we're done with our draw phase. So now as the dealer, you're going to roll those nasty, evil, horrible dice.
They do not match.
No match. No spike. Okay.
Now it's to you. Oh, now we bet to stay in.
Yep. So we both stuck with 2 cards. So that's interesting. I'm putting myself in the mindset of if can't see what you have, what do I think you have? I did see you make a trade. And then I saw you bluff with an awesome smile, like smirk on your face. And now I'm all intimidated. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll bet 2 to stay in and hope that is enough to psych you out.
And I'm thinking, oh, wow, 2. Do I really want to stay in with this terrible hand that I have? But
so yeah, he'll totally backfire.
But I will.
I bluff, then I wind up having the opposite effect sometimes.
Right.
Okay, so we matched each other. We're both still in. Now we go into the draw phase. I'm at negative 2. The question is, can I somehow improve that? There's now a negative or positive 9 in the discard pile. So if I swap this card,
that's a good choice.
This card, then I'm at positive 1. So again, just trying to get as close to 0 as I possibly can. That's about as good as I can do right now.
Right. I think I'm going to do another trade.
Okay.
Which probably would tell you if you hadn't seen my hands that maybe I'm in a little bit of trouble.
It's not working.
Yeah. But I want to see just a lot of positive.
Who shuffled these cards?
Who indeed? So I ended up getting a positive 6.
Okay. So right now it's positive 10 to positive 1.
Yeah.
But I don't know that. All I see is we're both doing the trading. You also don't know that I didn't ruin my hand when I did that.
You're still in.
Yep.
Okay.
Dice. Yeah, it's time for those dice.
Okay. They do not match.
No match. Okay. So now it's time for me to bet.
Mm-hmm.
Then this is our final bet. Based on my confidence level and what I have, I want to bet the pot up as much as I can without triggering you to fold.
At this point, I would definitely fold.
Yeah, I probably would too. Although, as we just saw in that last game,
that's true.
Who knows?
I would have folded, and I would have missed out. Yeah. So.
All right.
I'm just not a risk taker.
If you hate taking tiny, low stakes risks, Sabacc
might not be the game for you.
I'll just bet 2 chips to play.
Okay. Yeah, go play solitaire if
Yeah, on your phone. Okay, so Bridget stays in.
Yeah.
And then
I'll stay in for the audience.
to the draw. We're in the draw phase. I'm not going to do anything. I just stand.
Okay. You know what? I'm going to do something uncharacteristic. I'm going to pay a credit to see what this is. And it's terrible. It just keeps getting worse for me. Okay.
It hates you this time. It's like there's balance in the force.
At this point, I'm kind of hoping that we roll the dice and they match again.
Yeah, that becomes
so
I
picked a +8. So this is just terrible.
So you're at +1 billion, and then that's it. The last thing that happens is you roll the dice.
Okay, here we go. Oh, they match.
You gotta be joking me.
Wow. I swear I'm not cheating. So they match.
Yeah, I was looking for a little Qui-Gon Jinn. It looked legit though. I was watching. Yeah. I think that was a fair roll.
Okay, so I have 3 cards.
I have 2 cards.
Put those off to the side.
Yep.
And I will shuffle these out. You get your 2. I get my 3.
Okay. Boy.
And this is what we end up with. Okay.
Yeah, there's no draw phase because that
was the third
round.
Okay.
So thanks. I got a -8.
And I have 9, 10, 11, 12, and I have a +12 and a -7.
Yep. What does that add up to?
+5.
Yep.
So I win again.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Because of the dice.
Yep.
They don't call it Carillion Spike for nothing, folks.
I mean, it's pure luck. I don't know what to say. It sure isn't skill.
Fortune favors the bold. Matt Damon.
Wow. Okay.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah, thank you.
So at this point, do you want to play again or do we just call it good? Like those were some good scenarios. I don't know if we need to show more.
Why don't we do one more?
Okay.
And if we like it, we can cut it. We can cut it in or replace it with another one. But those are both really great.
Okay. So we talked about it, and Bridget's having such a good time at winning that we're gonna play a third hand.
Yeah.
And see if maybe I can get one on the books.
Okay.
So we'll rotate dealer to my position. I'll shuffle.
I'll take my credits.
I'll give you a few minutes to rake in all your credits. And again, not the Sabacc pot because that was not a Sabacc hand. Nobody got Sabacc.
Nobody got Sabacc. I think last time we played, didn't you get the Sabacc pot at least once? But I'm thinking it was twice that you got the.
Yeah, this game has a funny way of balancing things out. I notice.
Okay, I'm going to give you the dealer.
I did not ante.
I haven't anteed either. So 2 in the...
2 in the game pot, 1 in the Sabacc pot.
Yeah. Oh.
And then we'll flip the discard.
Okay, and the discard is a +9.
+9.
Wow. More positive cards for me. I have a +8 and a +5.
I got a -8 and a +6. Decent. Yeah. So
It's better than mine.
based on seeing those cards, we'll do a round of betting starting with you.
Okay. So I will bet a credit.
I'll see that.
Okay.
And then you're going to do your draw phase.
Okay. I'm going to trade a card. I'm going to trade my +8 for a +9.
Dang it.
It was the worst card.
Yep.
But not by much. So.
And unbeknownst to you, you gave me the exact card I need.
I did.
So now she can't see my cards, but I'm going to trade this one for that one.
Yeah.
And now I have a Sabacc hand.
That's exciting for you.
-8 and +8. Very exciting. And then
That's very good.
I'm going to roll the dice.
Okay.
And try not to spike. Okay.
Nope.
No spike.
The symbols sometimes are similar enough that at first glance you get a little worried about what it is.
A little mini heart attack every now and then.
Right.
Like I'll hold these up a little closer. There's just certain combinations that will kind of trick you just for a split second.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the first round. We go into the second round.
I'm going to stay in.
Okay. I'm feeling confident.
I'll do 1.
And then this is probably a moment where I would say, well, I'm in for 2.
Yeah.
And then you got to match that. Okay. So now we're matched.
Okay.
We do our draw phase. Starting with you.
I'm gonna trade again this +9 for card sight unseen. It is a +3. So still not great. I have a +8.
Yep. I'm going to stand. I don't want to mess with this hand. So then we go right to rolling the dice. I think that's the same as
I think
last
it is the same
It's
as
funny.
last time.
So, and again, the game can go kind of fast if you, like, once you sort of have the cards you want, like, it can click along pretty quickly.
With only 2 people.
Yeah.
So
It's more when you got more people, but that's actually one of the nice things is that it's not super complicated once you kind of get the hang of the flow.
Yeah.
So that's the end of the second round. Now we go into the third round. We're betting again. You're going in for 1?
I'm in for 1.
Okay.
You should go in for 1.
I'll go in. I'd go in with my whole stack.
Yeah.
I'll say 2.
But it's risky because there's still one more roll of the dice.
Yep. And so far I've won 0.
Yeah.
Thanks to those dice.
Yeah. Since this is the last round, I think I'm going to pay 1 and hope I get a negative card. And I do not. I get a +4. So if you're keeping track, it's a +4, +3, and a +5. Too bad. This is not poker.
Yeah. That's a much better poker hand.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand and then I'm going to roll the dice. And this is usually the moment where it happens.
It's happened.
Okay.
Okay.
No spike.
Nope.
For once. That's exciting. Okay. So at this point, I would win the game pot.
Yeah, we'd show our cards. If we were really playing.
We'll reveal.
We reveal, and I reveal that I have a terrible hand.
Yep. And then I'll show that I've got a Sabacc hand so that I win the game pot and the Sabacc pot.
It's great. It's a great hand.
Some really strict rule players will have rules about whether you got to match the bet if you want to see the opponent's cards.
Right.
But if they're taking the Sabacc pot, they sort of have to.
They have to. Yeah.
So that's game. That's game 3. I think you look like you're probably still ahead. I don't know. That was
because I won 2.
So we managed to bet that pot up a little bit in that game, which is sort of the goal.
Yeah.
Trying to get people feeling comfortable enough they'll stay in and keep on betting. And honestly, I think that mechanic with the dice helps with that. Helps people feel like, well, I have a terrible hand, but who knows? It's still anybody's game.
Yes. It always is, as you can see.
Yeah. For that to happen 2 games out of 3 where I had a winning hand and it wasn't enough. That's what makes the game so interesting and so fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for playing with me.
Yeah, it was fun.
Okay, we're back again. That was really fun. Thanks for playing with me, Bridget. I always really enjoy that time together. It's fun to just sort of feel like we're kind of make believe, we're in the Star Wars world. So
We're in our den of scum and villainy.
yep. That's
It's also fun to win.
Yeah, I'm glad you had that experience. Let's delve into the Jedi archives for a minute and look back at some of the more significant moments where Sabacc has kind of made its way into the Star Wars story.
Yeah.
To me, it's it's established at its earliest in A New Hope because we see the dice hanging in the Millennium Falcon from its rear view mirror in the cockpit.
The rear view mirror of the spaceship.
Yeah, that's how they see out the back.
Right. Those asteroids in the back.
Yeah. It helps for safety in the asteroid field. So, but at the time, we didn't know that's what those dice were for.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in Empire Strikes Back, they established that the Falcon did not always belong to Han Solo. And in fact, he won it off of Lando.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as a 9-year-old, I was making an assumption that maybe those dice had something to do with it, because I did carry that idea around with me in my head. Later in life, my memory's a little fuzzy, but I became aware of Sabacc somewhere along the way and knew that that was a card game. And so how to reconcile that with the idea that those dice must have had something to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of stuck for a long time and didn't really know what to make of it. I wanted it all to come together somehow. And I feel like maybe I wasn't the only one, because then when they made the movie Solo in 2018,
Make Solo 2.
Make Solo 2 happen. #. We're big fans of the Make Solo 2 happen folks. So if you're out there watching this, we're on your side big time. So yeah, for Solo, they had to sort of like get into the specifics of, okay, how exactly does this game work? Because we need to show it, because it's a big moment in the history of these characters and the ship and all of that. And so they actually kind of created this notion that it is a card game, but the dice will play a role, and actually makes it pretty fun, like keeps it interesting.
Play a role. Nice. Nice.
So Solo, they kind of like made it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we all sort of had this loose interpretation of what went on there with that card game, but you did some interesting research where you turned up the first ever mention of the word Sabacc.
Yes,
Do you
which
wanna
I
talk about that a
think
little
I read in Wikipedia, but I can't remember where I read it. But it was first mentioned in this book called The Mind Harp of Sharu. I don't want to spoil it for you, but it does have to do with a mind harp on the planet
There's
of
a mind
Sharu.
harp involved.
There's a mind harp involved. And basically, the first word of the book literally is Sabacc. I don't know if they can see that.
Yeah. It's
And so Lando is playing Sabacc, and I think it's a robot, maybe he wins an astromech something. He wins something, and he has to go to this other planet to collect it, and then hijinks ensue,
yep.
basically.
Star Wars type hijinks.
You can just imagine, because it's Lando.
Yeah. So I'm interested because do they imply that there's an element of the game where you're meant to call out the word Sabacc, like Uno? Like when you have a Sabacc in your hand, are you supposed to say it?
I don't think so.
I sort of want that to be what it
You
is.
do want it to be what it is, but I'm not sure why he exclaims on the first word. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. It's culturally significant because we're sort of seeing the origins of the word, perhaps.
Yes.
And it is the first word of the
Of the
book.
novel.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. So there's a deep cut for you. If you're here looking for obscure Star Wars trivia, you came to the right place.
There you go.
And that one's courtesy of Bridget. I don't know if I would have turned that up in a million years. So kudos to you for that.
Another interesting novel where Sabacc comes up, and it's a very important moment in this book, is in a book called Path of Destruction by the author Drew Karpyshyn, I think is how you pronounce his name. This book is about Darth Bane, kind of his origin story, and how he brought about the rule of two.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous because you turned, I sort of had it in my mental backlog to someday delve into the Darth Bane novels, the Darth Revan novels. There's way earlier time periods on the Star Wars timeline that these books go into.
Mm-hmm.
And you turned up Path of Destruction and read it and started kind of hyping it to me a little bit, like,
you got to read it.
You should probably read this.
It's great.
You were right. It's excellent.
Yeah, and it has multi-page passage talking about Sabacc and one particular pivotal game that he's involved in playing that sets him down the path that ends up.
This one game of Sabacc kind of like alters the fate of the entire galaxy for the rest of Star Wars.
Yes.
It's worth reading.
It is. Yeah.
If you're at all interested in Darth Bane, the rule of two, how did we get from the time period where there was lots of Sith to where there's a master and apprentice at all times?
This is the book
This is
to
your
read.
book. Yeah. Super worth it. Really well written. And that's from a while ago, 2006.
Oh, okay. I didn't know the year.
Yeah. And that's, so that's been a while. And the tone of how Star Wars novels are written has evolved a bit over the years. It's no Mind Harp of Shrew, but it's a pretty solid book.
It is.
You should check it out.
Yeah.
So that's Path of Destruction. And thank you for kind of warming me up to that, because it would have been a long time before I got around to reading that.
Yeah.
And boy, am I glad I did.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
In 2015, we see Sabacc turn up in an episode of Star Wars Rebels, which is one of the animated series. Takes place in between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, when you're kind of seeing the formation of the Rebel Alliance, and you see a young Lando playing a game of Sabacc, where I think he actually wins Chopper. That's the outcome of the game, which is funny now that you mention it. If he was winning an astromech in Mind Harp of Shrew, I wonder if that's
I wonder if this inspired that Rebels episode. I didn't think of that until just now. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
He wins Chopper, and he wins Chopper using a hand called the Idiot's Array, which is not one of the named hands in Corellian Spike. They're playing a different version called Bespin Standard rules.
Yeah, and I think that's the version they're playing in Path of Destruction.
Yeah.
Also, there's no dice involved in that one.
Right. This is probably an interesting moment to talk about what the dice represent, because I don't think we actually had this click for us until just recently. Probably while we were getting ready to talk about it for this episode. Do you want to talk about it, or do you want me to?
No, go ahead.
So in the book, they describe the idea that the Sabacc cards are actually little mini display screens. They're like a digital screen, which means they can be changed. So there'll be a transmitter somewhere in the place where you're playing that can broadcast a signal that at certain moments in the game, it will randomly pick cards in your hand and change them to some other value. And it's called a shift when that happens. And you also have the opportunity to pick a certain number of cards and protect them from that by placing them inside what they call an interference field, which is sort of local to the table. And so once they're inside the field, that transmitter that could randomize them for you isn't going to affect those, but it could affect the rest of the cards in your hand.
It's really well described in Path of Destruction.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. And they're giving you a little bit of Bane's, early ability to predict.
To use the Force.
Yeah.
But he doesn't realize it yet that that's what he's doing.
Yeah, it's kind of part of his early part of his journey. And so now when we play Corellian Spike and we roll those dice, and there's an element of chance determining whether we're going to dump our hand and draw new cards, it represents those digital cards in our hand getting changed by the transmitter to some other card, which I did not know. I've been playing this with you for the last year and a half.
Yeah. 2 years. Maybe.
And it's just a cool thematic element that I had no idea about. So if you wouldn't have had me read that book, I still wouldn't know. So I'm grateful for that. That's super cool. Yeah. Most recent mention of Sabacc we saw was in The Mandalorian last week. An episode called The Pirate, where Pirate King Gorian Shard, as he's consistently called, makes a reference to Sabacc. And I'm trying to remember what the line was. Something to the effect of, this isn't a game of Sabacc. You can't just bluff your way out of this. And kind of just making reference to what a heavy role bluffing plays. Because you could have nothing in your hand, and if you're good enough at convincing your opponents that you do, they might fold and you might win.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So we've sort of alluded to the fact that there's more than one version of this game. There's Corellian Spike, which you saw us play. There's Bespin Standard, which had the Idiot's Array, which was the winning hand in that Rebels episode. Plays an important role in Path of Destruction. There's another version called Coruscant Shift, which is played on board the Disney Galactic Star Cruiser, where they make Sabacc part of the experience there. I am trying to avoid spoilers for that to a certain extent.
Because we haven't been yet.
We haven't been on the Star Cruiser yet. And so I have some theories about how they might vary the game for that environment. But I'm kind of excited to see.
Very excited.
Someday, how's it? Are we right about that? How do our theories pan out?
Yeah.
We'll see. While we're talking about different versions, you may notice this box that we have on the table that was themed around the Solo movie in 2018 is not called Sabacc. Why is that? Well, there was a lawsuit. There was a company called Wren Ventures that, leading up to The Force Awakens coming out back in like a little earlier, maybe 2015, had created a mobile game you could play on your phone for Sabacc, like a portable Sabacc experience. And the reason they had done that is Lucasfilm and Disney had never gotten around to copyrighting the name Sabacc, which is interesting to me. But their argument was, well, it's been mentioned so many times in the lore and in the books and so forth, that should cover it. So that became an interesting kind of legal exploration
on copyright.
Around copyright.
Yeah.
And that case eventually resolved in Disney and Lucasfilm's favor, but not in time for the Solo movie to come out. So when Hasbro was making this kind of commercially available version of the game like you would find at Target, they could not use the word Sabacc because the case was unresolved. So that's why they had to market it as Han Solo card game. And to this day, that's what it's called. It's out of print now, I think. I don't see it sold anywhere other than secondhand, secondary market. So if you'd like a copy of that, that's probably your best bet, is Amazon or eBay. The version that you saw us playing is now called Sabacc because that case is resolved, and they sell that version at Galaxy's Edge theme parks in a shop called the Toydarian Toy Maker, where they have other toys and cute items. So now it's finally called Sabacc for real, and the rules are very simplistic. They actually don't cover betting, which to me is sort of like the heart of the game. If you subtract the betting, I'm not sure it's still as fun of an experience.
Yeah.
So we just use poker chips, like you would use for any poker game, and you can decide for yourself how many credits they represent. We did actually kind of briefly look into the idea of using really nice replica credits, because you can find them. They actually sell a set at Galaxy's Edge. There's some Etsy makers that make beautiful ones out of metal, like you'd really see, like you saw piled up on the table in the movie. They are not cheap.
No.
And
you need a lot to play.
You need so many.
Yeah.
And we've been experimenting a little bit with how many do you need to have a decent experience when you've got guests over. Like, how many does each person need? And what you saw us playing with here, where we had maybe like 40 of,
we were betting low too.
Betting low.
Yeah.
40 of like a single credit. You could decide those are 10 credits or 100 credits or whatever you want. And then maybe 10 of like a higher value if you need to trade some in or whatnot. That seemed to be about what we've settled on after a lot of games with guests. But man, if you were to try to have that many of those really beautiful metal ones, that's going to be a big investment.
Yeah.
So
it'd be awesome.
yeah, we're not, maybe not
That's a
quite
lot
to
of money.
that point yet.
Yeah.
You have to decide how big of a role is Sabacc going to play in your life. Yeah. You get to decide that for yourself. So it's probably time to move on to our next segment.
Okay.
We're going to talk a little bit about strategy. Whenever we learn a new game, we find we usually need a couple of playthroughs of it where we're not too worried about winning. We're not too worried about strategy or mastering it. We're really just trying to get the mechanics down, understand how a round works. What's the flow of the game? In fact, sometimes when we're learning, we won't even play a full game. We'll just do like 2 rounds.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, we got it.
Yeah.
In fact, there are some games where if we cover them on this show, we might not show the whole game if it takes 5 hours to play the full game.
And some do take that
some
long.
of them do.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll play the whole game. Kind of depends. We're going to start to have some guests on, we'll see what they're down for. But for the purposes of the show, we might just show like a round or 2 to kind of give you the idea. Maybe we'll post the full gameplay as like its own separate piece if people are really into that. There was a time when I really thought they wouldn't be. And then I discovered Twitch and I found, oh, yes, they are. Some people actually love watching that. And that's cool. So there is an audience. We'll figure it out. The show is a little bit of an experimental format for us. So
yeah.
We'll just kind of find our way through it. But we thought it would be worth having a recurring segment on the show where now that we've had a chance to think about the game up for a minute, what would we want to recommend as far as strategy or things we've picked up on from the game? And so we're going to call this segment, Let the Wookiee Win. Bridget, do you have any thoughts around strategy we've played Sabacc a lot, not just for this show.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share with folks about how you look at that?
Well, I think for me, it's a lot of luck. The times I've won, it's just been pure luck. I think if any of the strategy, if there's strategy that can come into it, it's reading the table, reading your opponents, seeing if they have any, if you can tell if they're bluffing or not, seeing if they have tells.
Mm-hmm.
I think also if you have a really good hand, you could probably try to force everyone else to fold if you bet really high. Mm-hmm. If you maybe bluffed a few times that way, people might, I don't know, catch on. But if you have a good hand and you want to keep it, really your only option is to try and get everybody else to fold before those dice are rolled.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's all I can think of. Yeah. It's a lot of luck, that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that's kind of my observation too. And this is not necessarily a negative thing. I have noticed in the board game world when players are debating the design of a game, is this a good design? Is this a bad design? The topic of luck comes up a lot in terms of how much luck did the designer sort of incorporate into the design? And they will often talk about it like it's kind of a derogatory thing, like, that game it's all luck. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. And the reason is people play games for different reasons. And part of the reason why I've collected games to such an extent is I sort of had an idea in the back of my mind of no matter what guests I have over, I wanted there to be the perfect game for them. I really like to host people, and I really like to have options to sort of pull out for them that might align to their play style, their comfort level with more complex games, or maybe they need something a little simpler.
Fast paced.
Yeah. Pace makes a big difference.
Yeah. If you don't have 5 hours to play a game, this would be a fun game to play that goes by real fast.
Yeah. Some people are more...
If you like poker, it's a great game for you.
Yeah. If you get anxiety from the pressure of trying to win or trying to have a big complex strategy, you will not need that for this game. As you saw in our gameplay, you can be... you can have a terrible hand and still win because of those dice.
Right.
They really lend
and there's nothing
element
you can do strategy-wise that would make those dice roll in your favor.
That's right.
Yeah. And
the fact that is thematically tied in with some of the historical events of Star Wars.
That's the best part.
Makes it cool.
Yeah.
Like it feels like you're participating in that to an extent. So, what will come up in that debate around luck is how much control did the designer give the player over the ability to mitigate the luck-based elements of the design.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you were just dealt your cards and you just had to make a hand out of them and that was it, then that's like 100% luck. You either got good cards or you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
In our case, playing Sabacc, you actually have a certain amount of control. It's not a ton, because you are still ultimately being dealt cards out of a shuffled deck, and you can't really manipulate them.
But you have options.
But you do have options of whether to keep them,
Right.
Replace them, and that gives you at least a little bit of influence over the outcome.
Right.
That can still completely be wiped out by the dice, but sometimes not. So it feels a little balanced. It's pretty simple, but it's fun. It's meant to be casual. It's meant to be the kind of thing you can have guests over who don't even necessarily have to know the first thing about Star Wars or even like Star Wars for it to be a fun game. I actually think it's pretty fun on its own. I would kind of be interested to hear from people who've played it with guests who don't know about Star Wars. Did they like it? We've had at least some.
We have. I was just going to say, I think we have played it with a few people who are not as familiar with the world as we are.
Yeah.
And they had fun playing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The last thing I was going to mention about this is luck and fate and destiny sort of play an interesting role in the Star Wars storytelling over time. Han Solo and Obi-Wan Kenobi actually have a pretty meaningful exchange about it back in that original film. And because of that, it made me feel like if we're going to do a show about Star Wars themed board games, we should probably have a moment where we just sort of address what role does luck play in the design of this game, because it's going to vary. You'll see it be different in other games that we talk about. So if we were to think of it in terms of a meter that we would actually like show up on the screen, maybe like from a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like 100% luck based, like you don't have to do anything and you have no control, versus 1 where it's all strategy and luck plays no role whatsoever. Where would you put this on that spectrum?
Probably pretty high. Pretty high. An 8 or a 9.
I feel like it's an 8 or a 9.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I can't make it a 10 because you do get to...
You have some control, and you could, if you're very good at bluffing, I think you could get other people to fold if you had a good hand.
And I've actually I used to play poker in high school, and I played with friends who were amazing at bluffing, and they could get me to dump my hand, almost at will.
Yeah.
And even though they had terrible cards. So I feel like that maybe makes it an 8. Like maybe if bluffing was not an element, you had a little bit of card manipulation ability, it would be more like a 9. But you introduce the bluffing, which is actually a skill you can develop. I think I would call it like an 8.
Okay. I agree.
On the luck meter. Yeah, that feels right.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of sites that will do more of a straight up game review where they really just kind of want to let the audience know what did they think. I'll read reviews on Board Game Geek sometimes. I kind of found after a while that my taste in games didn't necessarily match the community. So those ratings ultimately weren't that helpful to me. So I don't know that I really want to do that on this show, but you can usually find some aspect of a design that you can maybe offer some constructive critique of. I'm a big fan of Think the Maker. We've spent a lot of time listening
to them. Yeah, those guys are great.
I feel like that's sort of a master class in how to facilitate a mature, intelligent discussion about things that you might have mixed feelings about and not allow it to just turn into like a trash session.
Toxic. Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of wish more people would listen to it because of that alone. Like, I think they're modeling healthy behavior that I think we could use a little more of in the online world.
Yeah.
And so because of that though, if we're going to critique these games in some way, I want to try to find a way to keep it relatively positive.
You already know we're big fans of this game.
We love it. But every now and then there's something that's kind of glaring. So we're going to call that the Bantha in the room. I know there's an aspect of this game you've mentioned a couple of times. Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, I'll start with that. So I think the Bantha in the room for me is doing the math of the cards. It's for somebody who maybe is not quick at doing math in their head, might need a little extra help if you're neurodiverse in a way that makes math more difficult for you than others, I think this game might be hard for you. And, you know, I've had friends that we've played with who would fall under one or both or many of those categories and need a little extra help.
Yeah. I mean, we've all had that moment too, where just that extra social pressure of people staring at you while you try to do something quickly could introduce just enough extra anxiety. Might not be a comfortable experience. So you just kind of have to know your own parameters for what feels comfortable when you're playing. And if you want to just have a little calculator out or, you know, something to help support.
Pen and paper.
It's worth it.
Yeah.
Because I think the game's fun enough, you know, it's worth taking that extra step. For me, was there more for you? Or was that kind of was that the most obvious one?
That was the most obvious one for me. Yeah.
A couple I noticed were there are suits in this game. So you'll see them represented on the cards as triangles, squares, circles. And those suits actually have special names in the lore. They're called flasks, sabers, staves, and coins. In fact, in the Solo movie, you'll actually hear a character refer to their hand as straight staves, you know, as though it has special significance. And in the Corellian Spike rules, those suits make no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
You don't really have to pay attention to them at all, which implies that there's other variants that you could play with these cards where you would use them. And I have not run across what those are yet. I'm kind of hoping maybe they're out there somewhere and I just haven't found them. Or maybe somebody will design them someday. That's one of the nice things about Board Game Geek is you will see people write custom rules or modifications for games, and then you download a PDF and you're off to the races. So having these cool suits not get used feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. Not a big deal. The other one is just how massive the number of named hands is. There was a distinct moment where I remember thinking, no problem. I have a decent memory. I'm going to commit all these to memory. Like, I'm going to get into Sabacc. I'm really going to kind of like make this my thing so that when my guests come over, I can wow them with my extensive knowledge of all of the hands. It's names like the Fleet, the Yeehaw is the name for a hand.
That's right, the Yeehaw.
You know, things like that where you actually have a whole lineup of Sabacc hands where they all add up to 0, but just in a different combination.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole nother lineup of hands that are not Sabacc hands. They add up to something other than 0, but in a way that they've given a special name to. And try as I might, I have not managed to commit them all to memory.
That's too many, yeah.
And where I sort of gave up is when I realized how rare most of them are.
Yeah. They won't come up very often.
No. So it's not really worth that effort that it would take.
So you do need some sort of aid like we had in case it does come up. You can just sort of a quick reference guide that you need.
Yeah, that player aid that's plenty.
Yeah. And
it's very thorough. The first part will remind you of the rules if it's been a while since you played. The rest of it is literally just a reference so that if you and your opponent both have Sabacc and you're like, well, then who wins? All you do is you go through and you find that hand in the reference and you can see which one outranks the other. It's like the world's most complex rock, paper, scissors, but the answers are all there for you.
Yeah.
And so I want to thank our friends at a site that has covered that really well called Les Tribunes de Coruscant. It's a French site that has posted this player aid, and I got their permission to post the link directly to their PDF download in our show notes. So if you find that there, go ahead and grab that, and that'll be what you need. We printed it, laminated it, threw it on a set of metal rings, and now it's like a permanent addition to the game for us.
Keep it with the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bridget, while we're at it, do we want to talk about what do we think of this drink?
I think we do.
Okay.
Yes, I think you do. You may have noticed that the boba balls that we have in here are different than the ones that we made. We chose to use the ones that kind of pop in your mouth.
Yep.
Which I love the texture. I like the feel of that, but I'm not sure how keen I am on the kiwi flavor with all these other flavors going on in here. But I have to say, I chose to have mine without alcohol, and I like it better with the kiwi flavor without the gin.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think the kiwi and the gin is just too much of a weird flavor.
Clashes a little bit.
Yeah. But with the gin, I like the boba balls that we made by hand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you sort of found a benefit to both.
Right.
Yeah. And I thought, like, yeah, the first time we made these was a little while ago, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't find boba pearls in the store. The cooking directions in the cookbook just say, buy some store-bought boba pearls and follow the instructions on the package and you'll be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And we could not find any.
Yeah. Not in your regular chain stores, but where we live, we're lucky enough to have a Asian market called a Wajimaya that has a wide selection of boba pearls. And that's where we got these.
Yeah. But again, those are the pre-made ones and
The
they are
pre-made
flavored,
ones,
like
yeah.
the kiwi flavor.
You can't get them unflavored.
No.
At least not that we saw on the shelf.
And so if you want to start with those unflavored, the only option I ran across came in a kit where you're going to make boba tea, bubble tea with boba.
Yeah, bubble tea with
bubble
boba pearls.
And I felt like it was going to be a little wasteful to buy it and just not use that part.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, you were like, that's fine. Let's just make our own from scratch. And I was like, really?
I looked up some videos and I thought, oh, this will be easy. It's 30 minutes. It's 3 ingredients.
Yeah, just toss it together real quick.
Yeah.
And
Y'all, I'm so naive when it comes to
it's a lot of work.
doing anything in the kitchen.
But I'm glad to have learned that process.
I am too. I enjoyed doing it. It was a little bit messy, but it was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun to make, and it was successful, which is the best part.
Yeah, they were good. And if what you want is a chewy texture, and that's the version of boba that you prefer, then
that's what you want.
It's totally doable. If you want the popping boba, then these store-bought ones will work just fine. They're great.
Yeah.
And I did not look to see if they're available
online
to order online.
Oh, I didn't think about that either.
They probably are.
Because I thought, why buy it online when you can go to Wajimaya?
Yeah. Yeah. We're lucky to have solid options around here for the Asian market.
Yeah. But I do enjoy it. It's refreshing. It feels like a summer drink. And it's just so cool looking with the boba pearls in there. It doesn't really look like you're drinking something from Dagobah.
Little Dagobah.
That you'd see Yoda slurping down.
Yeah. It feels right.
Yeah.
Feels right for him. Yeah. So I think I would give it a thumbs up. I like how light it is. It does feel like a summertime drink. You know, it was gin and a carbonated drink. So I was like, oh, it'll be like a modified gin and tonic. Doesn't really taste like that at all.
No, the ginger is very noticeable.
What I thought,
strong.
I thought that slug juice was pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Do not overdo it on the slug juice.
I really like ginger, so it's feels like the perfect combination.
Yeah.
Summer drink for me.
If you don't like the taste of ginger, this is probably not the cocktail for you.
Yeah.
But it does work surprisingly well in a cocktail. I actually liked it.
Yeah.
So Bridget, I think we successfully made it to the end of our first episode.
We did it.
That's
Yay.
a big milestone. There's a lot of preparation went into this. And you've been a really great partner this whole way along.
Oh, thank you.
So it's made it a lot of fun. Bridget, do you want to share a little bit about our prize giveaway?
Oh, yes. So we were thinking about the movies and we were thinking about A New Hope, the movie that started all of this. And it ends with the celebration and a scene that we realized as we were planning this show that at the end of the episode, we wanted to celebrate you, our delightful and wonderful audience and friends.
So at the end of each of these episodes, what we're going to do is give away some cool items, and we're going to pick the winner from the folks who are subscribed to the channel. So we'll just randomly pick somebody out of that list, and we'll do that starting in our next episode. And we're probably going to have about 3 or 4 subscribers by that point. So your odds of winning are not
pretty
bad.
high right now.
This is a great time to be subscribing to Board Game Cantina. And Bridget, do you want to show them what they're going to win?
Yes, I would be delighted to. So this is what you're going to win. It is Sabacc.
Brand new.
Brand new. In our next episode, we'll give away the brand new copy of Sabacc, which we just recently picked up at Galaxy's Edge on Batu. And
about 2 weeks ago?
About 2 weeks ago in Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah, and it's such a special place. So we thought it would be cool to actually personally pick that up while we were there.
Yeah.
Bring it home and deliver that to you.
Yeah. So we'd love for you to win this and enjoy it with your favorite friends and family and Star Wars loving folks in your life.
Yeah.
And you can play it with your family or droids or aliens or whoever you have game night with.
Yeah, whoever's in your group. So thanks everybody for joining us. We're so excited to finally have our first episode out in the galaxy. We hope you had as much fun as we did. To me, this is really fun. This is kind of a dream come true to finally be doing this. So you're going to find links in the show notes to all that great stuff that we explored in the episode. I want you to be sure to subscribe and hit the bell, which I'm terrible at remembering to do on the sites that I follow, but that's going to help you catch new episodes as soon as they drop and be eligible for that giveaway that Bridget was just talking about. If you check out our Instagram, that's going to provide you with a little bit more fun content. We're going to, every now and then, we'll share some kind of behind the scenes peeks at how we're approaching the show. So come visit Board Game Cantina again for our upcoming episodes where we're going to welcome our first guests who are going to help us try out more of these fantastical cocktails and board games from around the galaxy. We would be honored if you would join us.
Thanks for watching, friends.
May the Force be with you.
Till the spire.